find the membership and never show up.
Good morning, everyone. It being Wednesday, November 13th at 9 a.m., we'll be calling the Kane County Human Services Committee to order. Call, please.
Allen. Kenyon.
Here. Oh, wait. Deb, is that you?
Yes, it is. Hello, I'm on my way.
Good morning.
Lewis.
Lewis here.
Silva. Dr. Silva. Carver.
Under here.
Surges.
Present.
Tepe. You have an in-person quorum?
Thank you. I do have a note from Mr. Tarver that says work. Is he online?
He says he was going to be online, but he has not.
Okay, I would request permission for our remote, which is Miss Allen, Mr. Tarver, and I think Miss Silva. Is that okay with the committee?
Chair, good morning. This is Dr. Silva. I have a little bit of car trouble this morning, but I am walking in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, approval of minutes. We have a motion.
Linda Rose for unanimous consent.
Well, make her call the roll.
She just did. You just called roll. We are at,
Again, the vote. Oh,
Mr.
But Cliff, to make it longer.
Mr. Tarver's computer is updating.
I live.
okay. Can he hear us?
I don't know.
Text him and let him know he's okay to join in whenever he can, if he'll just let us know when it's available. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of minutes. Unanimous consent, I'm sorry. Okay. Item 5, public comment. I see no one in the room, and I don't know that we have anybody online. Is that correct, Blair? Perfect. Monthly financial reports, I believe, are on file. If anybody has any questions on those, please reach back. Item 7A, Jamie, monthly Blue Cross Blue Shield invoice.
All right, all of the reports, the regular reports are on. We're well on track with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Blair, if you want to pull up that invoice. So we've been right on track all year. You know, we've kind of brushed over it with some business, you know, we've been busy and we've kind of gone over these, but we have been right on track all year with our health insurance budget. So if you want to go another couple pages forward, we have the one more. Yeah, go to the next page of that. That's the one. So we're in the green this year. I expect that'll get a little closer to even as the year goes out. There's a 6-month run out on claims. So we will get claims for 2024 that'll go towards that balance for about 6 months after the year ends typically. So we're right on track for where we expect to be for 2024 health insurance.
Jamie, the red, that's the 1.4, 1.4, what year were those?
1.4.
In the middle.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 column.
Where it says all other and asterisk, is that what you're talking about? Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Where it says the 1.766, 1212, right underneath it in red.
Right. The green is how much money we brought in, and the red is how much money went out in that month.
So took a jump the next month for August sharply, a few $100,000. Any clue why? Is that like back to school stuff or what? I mean,
sometimes summer dips a little bit just because people aren't going in and getting their routine care. As you start getting into the end of summer, beginning of fall, that's also when we send out all of our reminders for people to get their wellness exams in.
so there's a push. There's a concerted. There's a
right. I think it's just coincidental there's nothing that's out of tolerance. Those numbers are where we expect them. If anything, June and July were low rather than August being high.
Okay. Thank you for reviewing this. I think the past several months, we've simply asked you, are we within tolerance? And at the amount toward reserve there, I think we're well in tolerance. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Item B, monthly Blue Cross Blue Shield and MERP totals.
So we kind of skipped over that. You know, the numbers are good. We've actually hit 80 for MERP, which is a record high as far as long as I've been here. So we've got a lot of people on that. And as we talked about yesterday in the board meeting, we're transitioning vendors from Catalyze to Flex. Flex is a vendor that we currently use for our FSA and commuter benefits. So it's a vendor that our employees are familiar with. We've had great service from them, and that is where we are expecting to save about $300,000 a year in fees on MERP by that vendor switch.
And Jamie, I would be negligent if in this discussion with the Flex, we didn't take at least a minute for the committee to explain the controversy that may have occurred during this. I don't
Want
even
me
know
to
how
start from the
I don't even
beginning
know
and
how to set
explain
the
the whole
stage for that, but
process? I
let's
can,
make sure the committee members understand. And we are at end zone and it all worked out and the touchdown was scored, but it was, you know, we didn't do it on a Hail Mary pass. This was a inch by inch painful experience that Jamie bore the brunt on her own. So
back in the summer, we decided to review the MERP plan to make sure that our costs and fees were appropriate. One of the things I noted, this plan existed many years ago before I got in, and it was working well, and it wasn't one of the first things that I looked into in detail. But when
and we all understand here in the room what MERP is, correct? Anybody that doesn't and needs a refresher. Perfect.
So when we started looking at it in the summer, I realized that this plan did not go through our broker. This was set up separately. So I contacted our broker, Assured Partners, and I asked them to please price out competitively with a number of vendors this plan. When they did, that's when I noted that the fees we were paying to our current vendor were substantially higher because they used a different method for calculating fees. They used that savings method.
Folks, that's substantially with a capital S and an exclamation point.
It's going to
Please
save
be
us
aware of
about
this.
$300,000 a year to switch vendors. So we decided to go forward with switching vendors, and among that, we sent it to the state's attorney for a legal review of the plan. Because when we did that, all of the vendors, there were, I think, 4 vendors that offer this type of plan that Assured Partners contacted, and all of them told us that they do not believe we can legally provide a premium reimbursement. So we turned to our state's attorney to make a final judgment on that and determine if we can provide a premium reimbursement. And in their research into HRA or health reimbursement accounts, which is what this is, it's defined by the IRS as a health reimbursement account. In their review of that, they came across a couple statements that made them question whether we could legally provide an HRA account to the same employees that we offer group insurance to, even if those people decline to participate in the group plan. So that's our qualifier for this. If you decline to participate in our group insurance, you can opt for MERP. So amazing help from the state's attorney's office who made this a priority. It's not a space they're incredibly familiar with. So it took a lot of research from them, and they ended up having a conference call with the attorneys for our broker and talking through their concerns and understanding what type of HRA account this is, what those statements mean that they were concerned with, and we're able to determine that we are able to legally provide the MERP plan in the same way we do, just without the premium reimbursement. So it was a month there, which
So, you know the
weren't sure
phrase-
we would be able to have MERP at all, and we were
No good
concerned.
deed goes unpunished. Here we are trying to do something and then she's being told, oh, by the way, it might not be allowed and you may have been doing it wrong. And so, I mean, quietly fighting a battle in the background. But honestly, I don't know that we realized
Thank you.
the computation model that they were using was not being used by other vendors, and there was a better way. And so bravo, young lady, for doing this, and thank you for taking it on the chin for us and moving forward, and well done. Michael?
Are we at risk of being in trouble with the IRS for what we have been doing?
I think that falls squarely on us and the conversations that we were having. From my background, it's of course, we want to make sure that the carrier or the broker or somebody else is accepting liability. Yeah, that wasn't happening. The liability fits squarely on us. That's why we engaged the state's attorney's office, who put up every slow down, pump the brakes, that you could. And then between the executive committee and the board meeting, they gave a ruling saying, yeah, we're fine. So we can do this.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to monthly assured partners report.
And we kind of already went through that one as
Yeah.
well with the invoice. So if you want to go on to the applicants and staff changes.
Is this the report that comes back and we wildly see the election workers in here?
Yes,
skews
that's
our-
the only thing I was going to point out in this, and just to understand that election workers do have to become employees by state law, and we have to payroll them. So this is just to kind of point out how this becomes an extremely busy month for not just the clerk's office, but for finance, payroll. Everybody, this is a lot to bring all these people on as employees. They will show up on a termination report later. Some of them we keep on if they're going to continue to be election workers in future elections. So that's always something that kind of just skews our numbers a little bit in certain times. So we do normally remove election workers when we give you head count reports and things like that, because we will sometimes have thousands of election workers on our payroll, but they're not being paid every pay cycle.
Thank you. Workers' comp and liability reports.
Actually, there's a report in between. I was just gonna, if you
Oh,
want to go to
sorry.
page 37, Blair. This is, you guys asked me about exit interviews in the past, and so I just kind of wanted to put up, this is a year's worth of data. We do get usually a pretty good response from people taking the survey that we send to them by email. Just to get some basic reasons. There is place for them to freeform type as well as to request an interview from Human Resources if they want it, in person or by phone. Most opt just to fill this out. So this is just kind of an overview of the data to get a general idea of why people are leaving Kane County. If anyone wants more detailed information, I certainly can produce reports that have the actual typed out responses that they have given or departmental breakdowns. I'd be happy to share that if anybody's looking for more detailed information.
Cliff. Yes, because when I looked at the dissatisfied workers, 70%, combine that with dissatisfied with the workload, that's 23%. That seems to me a lot, like that we still, we've talked a lot about, do we have employees that don't feel valued? And I think just to see what they're actually saying behind that would be kind of important.
I'd be happy to share that with you.
And Jamie, of the 35 respondents, that sampling represents what percentage of people? We had 100 people leave and 35 people responded. We had 3,000 people leave. I mean, what, give me a.
You know what? I don't have that figure in front of me, but we do only send this to county employees, not those of elected officials, because
Okay.
the elected officials do manage their own staff. So you're looking just at the county employees, and I would say that's a pretty good response. I think you're probably running maybe 1 in 4 responding.
Okay.
So I would guess out of maybe over 100, but I
Dr.
don't
Silva,
know
did
that.
you have a question? You don't have to.
Thank you.
I'm just. Okay, yeah, Jamie, I would be curious, just personally, if send that like 35 of 100 of 200, and then what might we do to make responding more palatable? Like, how can we tweak that to say, guys, we really do care. Let us know, because asking them to do this and then having this data is probably silly. What are we doing with the data? How are we using this? And of the more money and benefits at 34% there, do we have any way of breaking down? My attitude is, I don't know that we can compete with, or should we be evaluating with private sector? Or is that more money and benefits because they went to another county, another municipality, another public sector?
So sometimes people do include that in their text and sometimes they don't. So they do have a spot after they pick the multiple choice button, which includes these options. It does ask them to elaborate. Not everybody fills that out. Some people just go through and pick the quick buttons.
Okay.
So that's how we tried to make it easy for people. If they've only got 2 minutes and they want to just click the buttons, they can. But if they have the time to actually fill out a response for us, it does ask for that. So we retain all of that.
Okay. Super. If anybody has any input on that or expertise on it, that'd be great.
I can prepare a more detailed report and email it out. to the
I'd just
committee.
love to see what it looks like. If you could just give us
Absolutely.
a sample of, example of it, that'd be great. Good morning, Deb. Okay. Workers' comp and liability reports.
Again, everything is in tolerance here. I know we hear a lot in board meetings about some of these settlements and things that we go through, but we process hundreds of workers' comp claims. So they don't always go that far. So it may seem like you hear about them a lot, but a lot of them are well managed and taken care of without ever having to reach that point. Those are only some of the more serious injuries. So we do process quite a few workers' comp claims, and our average claim cost isn't nearly as high as what you see in the ones that make it to settlement.
So folks, when we began this journey, ask for two things. Just if every board member can govern themselves appropriately and think about the ramifications of their actions as compared to previous boards where we had some very large settlements and had to think our way through that. And as a collective body, bravo. We equally have asked for a leap of faith to bring on some additional staff to help with claims, to help with loss prevention. Folks, if you didn't hear it yesterday, there is a carrier fighting to have our business as compared to 3 years ago where we were begging anybody, or 4 years ago, whatever, begging anybody to take us. That is a paradigm shift, and bravo to everyone and our counterparts in the public offices for the cooperation in getting us back to this point. And we're by no means, out of the woods, but we can definitely see light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. And I applaud everybody and thank you for that. Jamie, is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. And if anyone wanted to know, our average claim cost for the current policy period is $9,432. So that's the average claim cost for a single claim. And of course, that's brought up by the ones that are serious, some of them completely unavoidable, like the deputy that got in a serious car crash and things like that. Those are high cost claims that no one in the county did anything wrong. It's something that happens. So sometimes they're unavoidable and it's just the cost of doing business.
Yep. Any questions there? Michael,
Well, when we hired Jamie,
pardon me?
when we hired Jamie,
Yes, ma'am.
that's the turnaround.
Absolutely.
A good boss is worth a lot of money.
And her entire
The
team.
bad boss, you just can't. How many people do you know they quit their job? I had a friend at Edison and he just couldn't stand his new boss, and he could see that the guy was young and he was never going to get away from him.
I couldn't agree more. And Jamie, it is not just you, but you have handpicked a team up there. We have turned over that entire department, and your group I am not getting complaints. I don't know if anybody else is. I'm not hearing a squeak. I'm hearing people say,
Well, they're
thank
afraid of
you.
you.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not hearing them as anybody else hearing them. So You know, and so I think what Mr. Kenyon is saying, you have our deep appreciation and
Yeah.
thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you. I have a fantastic team. They make me look good.
Open enrollment, how'd we do?
We did good. So there's some numbers in there at the end of the workers' comp report. It's on page 49. We just kind of put a graph up there. So the HSA was new this year. We had 39 employees enroll in the HSA. So
I think that's a lot or a little.
that's really good for the first
Okay.
year. Good for the first year. I expect it'll go up as people see, you know, how it's working and everything. And it really was partially brought on to draw new people because the private sector works very heavily in HSAs. A lot of people are coming to our employee already having HSA accounts and wanting to continue that type of program so that they can continue contributing to that HSA. So people that were very familiar with it, we had new employees asking for HSAs. So I think that number will go up because I think now that it's going to be available to new employees, I think we'll have more people go directly onto that HSA because it's consistent with what they have been experiencing. So the HMO continues to be our largest group. That's the gray one. With 491 of our participants being in the HMO. So we did consolidate the union and non-union plan, which means everybody has the lower emergency room deductible of $250 now. I know that was kind of a controversial change of 6 or 7 years ago when they made that change, that the non-union plans would have that higher deductible for the emergency room of 500. So now that's dropped down to 250, the same as the union plans. Doing this does not greatly increase the cost to the county, and what it does increase is likely saved by the easier administrative functions of having half as many plans. We also went out there to try to get in touch with our HMO of Illinois participants. We reviewed the HMO of Illinois plan. The only difference between the Blue Advantage and the HMO of Illinois plan is 4 primary care doctors, one of which is in downtown Chicago, a couple in Crown Point, Indiana, and 1 in Springfield. None of them are in this area. We did have 1 employee only who had ever used any of the doctors in that. The rest of the employees in it are paying more money and not getting anything. So we thought that was probably a communication and understanding on the side of our employees. We hadn't properly communicated what the difference in those plans were to those employees. So we did send personal letters to each of them explaining that difference. And I think it's about less than half. I think about half of them dropped out of that plan and moved to the Blue Advantage, which saves them money and will not change their benefits. Every other function of the plan is exactly the same. It's just that group of doctors, primary care doctors, that's different. It's the same group of specialists and that are available under all of our plans. It's the same group of doctors as far as referral specialists.
So on this, if we'll remember back 6 years ago, we tried to shop our health insurance. And while there were more competitive plans available, in my opinion, the response from employees and staff and management was overwhelming, that the disruption wasn't worth the cost savings. So focus someplace else. Our focus at that time was to try and fix, and Jamie helped me with this, we tried to have a pure distribution of the 1783 that had somehow become manipulated at some point, and understandably why, but we needed to clean that up. I have 3 points. We're pure this year, correct?
We have been for a couple of years now. It's not uncommon. It's actually quite common among county governments to make it an aggregate 8317 split and encourage employees to use the more cost-effective plan. So to have a, maybe 80-20 split on the expensive plan and a, 85-15 split on the more affordable plan to encourage employees to pick the more affordable plans as long as the aggregate's 83-17. That's the way the county did it years ago. There are other counties that continue to do it that way. There's nothing wrong with it. It's completely allowable, but it was not favored that way here by our unions, and they wanted a pure split, and we switched to a pure split 3 years ago.
Perfect. The next option that we did was to try and go to an electronic format. And we asked this body to give us a little latitude to spend some money to shift everything from a manual format to an electronic format. I think it's going marvelous.
It is going fantastic. The first year, getting people to use their computer or their phone app to pick their benefits. Nobody likes change, I guess, but a couple years in, everybody really gets into the system easily. And I think it went incredibly well this year, although I have to thank Christine Davis for that. She's the reason it goes so smooth. She knows that system inside and out, and she gets that set up with the vendor ahead of time every year so that all of our benefits are in there with the dollar amount, so that when employees are making their choices, they get to see at the end of it exactly how much this will impact their paycheck. So it's a great system, and I think it's of a benefit to our employee because they get to look at those changes, make those elections, and then see exactly how much that will cost them. And they also get to see how much it costs the county, so they can understand the value of that benefit.
So huge. And again, we're talking about making advances here, and as members of this committee, but in a bigger body on the board, we have seen many more employees come on. And folks, this is running really smooth. Everything we did, it's worked. And so, bravo. The other thing we tried to do was introduce some more options that are available. And I'm thrilled to see that the HSA, I mean, it's only 40 people, but I'm thrilled to see that was embraced. And I would venture to guess that that will grow dynamically, but that was an absolute response to staff asking. And where I'm going with this is, once we get all this buttoned down and it's really running, I'm hoping that we have the ability and the trust factor with everyone to say, we really do need to shop this, and we really do need to, come to some realities. And I think we're going to have enough data finally to say, do we have our act together? And would you trust us to make this jump? And maybe we're not there yet, but that's the goal, to be in a position where the carriers are coming to us. We're not going to them. And each one of these iterations has really helped get us there, in my opinion. The only complaint that I've had at all was I did get a phone call this past month from Mr. Hain, Sheriff Hain. One of his, something about the hiring. And if you'll remember, State's Attorney Mosser had come saying, we're having some problems hiring new people because y'all made this stretch too long from when we hire somebody to when their benefits kick in. It's way too long. We need to shorten that. Why can't it be immediate? Well, we couldn't make it immediate, but we could shorten it. And we have, and I think Ron had one scooch he was trying to, and I don't know how that ever worked out, but he did call me, and I got it to Jamie. And did that work out over here?
That's a different kind of situation that he was referring to. Wasn't a new hire situation, it was a different one.
Interesting.
But to kind of clarify, when it comes to the health insurance plan, it is a policy set by the board. Eligibility is. We do not make eligibility exceptions. I think that's a slippery slope. This is people's health insurance. It's their livelihood. And when it comes to the health insurance plan, we as employees contribute in addition to the employer contributing. So that money is not the county's money. It is also the employee's money in that health insurance fund. And it's not appropriate for any individual, elected official, employee, or otherwise to expose that bank of money outside of the policy rules or to make exceptions, because it is not our money. It is the employee's money, and it is their health plan. So we make no exceptions on the eligibility rules established by the board. They are followed to the T in every single case, no matter what. We've
And
had.
Mike, if you'll remember, that wasn't always the case, and we've had to stand firm on that. But we did meet them halfway, and I think do we offer the first day of the month following 30 days of consecutive employment?
Yes, the
What?
old way to do it years ago, before we made an adjustment, was 60 days of employment, continuous employment, then on the 61st day you were eligible. Some of the problems with that is it had people becoming eligible in the middle of the month, which was usually of no use to them, because when you buy COBRA insurance from your previous employer, you buy it in full months. So it doesn't help you much to become eligible on the 17th of the month. We also didn't have a good way to prorate those premiums for the middle of the month either. So that mid-month didn't seem to help people much. It just actually made it harder for everyone. And it's part of the reason people were struggling as far as getting their insurance to start. So now we start on the first of the month following 30 days of continuous employment. That's a common way to do it. It's the way a lot of the other counties do it. It's the way a lot of private industry does it. Starting,
Gone smoothly?
it's gone smoothly, and
Okay.
that way it starts everybody on the first of the month. So if they have to purchase COBRA, they can do so in full months without having to double purchase insurance. We don't have to prorate anybody. It's a
But
full
elected
month.
offices aren't coming saying, we can't hire somebody because your policies aren't. It's
No,
working.
that is a very industry standard and common way to do insurance. So I don't believe that would be a detriment to hiring.
I just want to compliment Jody on how well she articulates all of this. I think up here, somebody down here could all listen to that explanation of why we don't make exceptions and understand it. Might not like it, but they would totally understand it. And they should, good job.
Thank you.
Agreed. Everybody understand this? We're okay? All right. Monthly training report.
That is our prevention of sexual harassment training. I'm pleased that a few years into this, people generally readily go ahead and take care of that training. And we're having to spend considerably less time tracking people down than we used to. We do still track them down on an individual basis as we get past the deadline. We have people do that by October 31st of every year, so that we have a couple of years to catch, or a couple months to catch the stragglers. But starting January 1, you guys are all going to start getting those annoying emails again until you do it. So, you know, if you get it done early, then those emails go away.
Thank you so much. I don't believe I have anything under item 9 for old business. I do have a discussion to add to the new business. We won't discuss it. I just want to get it on the table. So let's start with, well, let me start with, I had sent an email out to the board. Chris, you and I spoke about this, saying we came out of a meeting with very little understanding of who should be doing what and who should be talking and discussing certain things. And in that email, I had said, are we discussing this here, and you're discussing that there, or how does that work? Admittedly, I sandbagged that until after the election to be able to say, I don't think it's fair that this group jams something onto that group. Let's make sure that for the upcoming month, we put that on there. And does that make sense? Am I saying that correctly? And I will get you that email and we'll, go from there. We didn't put it, the 3 things I said, so this committee's supposed to discuss these. Yeah, they're not on here.
Oh.
So, but that was deliberate to say, let's discuss them once we have a new board and a new committee sat. As we know, chairmans change, committees change. I don't think that would be appropriate to begin a conversation and then, and so I don't think 30 days was going to hurt anything to do that, but I don't want those to fall off the plate. And I do want to mention them here, along with there was a policy or two that needed to have some discussion regarding, I don't want to say travel reimbursement, but if somebody's going to go to a seminar or something like that, were we willing to adopt that here and discuss that and bring that forward to the board for consideration. Next month, if that's the appropriate timing, I would like to have that on the agenda, whoever's sitting, wherever we're sitting.
That policy is currently defined in our financial policies, not in our personnel policies. So just to be clear, you'd like me to get started on a personnel policy about travel?
Yes, and I will make sure that I get with Mr. Berman and we discuss that a little bit as soon as that dust settles with everything that they've been working on. And again, next month would be the time and we'll give direction on that, or someone will give direction on that. So.
Okay.
Fair?
Absolutely. Whatever you guys.
That
think.
answer your questions here? Yeah. And Mr. Kenyon, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. Absenteeism and tardiness discussion.
So this is just up as a discussion item because I've had a couple of department heads approach recently about absenteeism problems in their department. When it comes to disciplining employees, it's very helpful to have a board policy that's in place that they signed when they were hired. It really helps with that process. So they kind of were, leaning towards wanting something there they could rely on when they're dealing with absenteeism problems. One of the reasons that I believe there was never an absenteeism policy in the handbook, other than there is one, but it's very brief and not detailed, is because departments really need to make their own decisions on what's an acceptable amount of absenteeism. It can vary greatly from department to department depending on the work. But one of the problems that the departments are facing is the county does give a lot of paid time off, and employees are taking all of that time in the form of call-ins rather than scheduling their vacations. When you look at 5 personal days, 2 weeks vacation, extended sick when needed, things like that, it turns into a lot of call-ins that have been disruptive to operations. So we're looking at creating a policy, if everybody's amenable to that, that would limit call-ins to those 5 personal sick days and then any other days as approved by the department head. So it would still leave
Is
all that
managed
flexibility.
Electronically, like does the department head just go into New World and say, Jamie has 13 sick days left or 2 personal days, or?
Our payroll system tracks how many you have, but those are input by the department. So if an employee takes a sick day, that has to be entered into the system. Some departments use NovaTime, which is our time card system. Some don't. So it's up to the department to get that information to payroll so that it's properly tracked. So the department kind of manages that it's input properly.
I'm
And
hoping
we'll
you would say
continue to
seems
do
like a
that.
Nightmare, but
Yeah, it's
I
an
have to-
interesting idea. Excuse me, this is Kai. Is that okay?
Go- absolutely,
Thank-
sir.
Is this just for the, not for electeds? We're not talking about.
No, it would be a
Just the
county
departmental?
employment.
And
Yeah.
then each one of those, the directors would have a say after that, like you in your individual department.
Yes, then it would, yeah, it's still completely going to be at the department head discretion. I think kind of in the past, it's been, you can write whatever absenteeism policy you want for your department, but nobody was really putting it in writing. And so then when they would face an absentee problem, they wouldn't have anything in front of them to show to the employee, too many people, it's one of those things that you think, everybody knows what and too much is too much, right? But I don't think that that's always true for employees.
Yeah.
And so I think having a guideline in place that is signed off when the employee is hired and signs the handbook is useful, then anything beyond those 5 days. So everybody gets the 5 days, and that's kind of defined in that sick policy that's what those 5 days are for. That's consistent with the Paid Leave for All Workers Act. And it establishes those typically 40 hours if you're a full week employee for that purpose.
And that would be resident, excuse me, if that okay, resident in the handbook? Is that where the policy would then be? It's not like written in stone somewhere, but it would.
No, it would be a handbook policy, but then any additional days beyond that vacation days would have to be approved by the department head. That's not to say the department head couldn't approve them at any point in which they wanted. So that would still be completely discretionary for the department head, but it gives them something in writing. So
Right.
I've had a couple of departments say that this would be helpful to them. So before I bring a draft to the board, I'll circulate it to the department heads for feedback. We just want to make something that works well for them and helps them in their
Chris,
management.
conversationally though, it's absenteeism and tardiness. So if somebody's doing a performance review and you just wanted a data matrix, you've been late 37% of the time. Do we have software? Do we have, if everybody's on a different system, do we have the availability to quantify that as a management tool? Or are you suggesting that that's not there either? And where would you be going in terms of a tardiness policy? I mean, it just, tardiness
Absent-
policy that is not trackable. I don't get it.
So absentee and tardiness is the title of the current policy, while a
Gotcha.
brief paragraph, that is the current title of the policy that's in our handbook right now. Like I said, it's very brief and general in terms. It says 3 unexcused absences in a row are grounds for termination, but it doesn't define an unexcused absence, things like that. So, you know, it's not incredibly well written as it is. So we're looking at making it a little more defined so that it's helpful. When it comes to the system that's being used, we have New World. And as long as the departments input that data into New World, then reports certainly can be run. That tool is available to them. And anytime they take time off, whether paid or unpaid, that would be in the payroll system. So they would be able to run those reports. Tardiness, if someone is coming in late, if they're not docking them or making them use benefit time for 15 minutes or something that could be run, then they would have to be tracking that themselves.
Vern, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple comments on this. One, I think this is a great discussion. And second, I think it would be very important to document this and maybe even look at making it a monthly report associated with absentee and tardiness. Because it can easily get out of hand. And third, maybe 2 parts to the third part, but one, I think we should check to see if any of the elected officials have a written policy. And in addition to that, I think we should check to see if any of the elected officials would like to participate in coming up with a policy that would be a bit more well documented and less would be a little bit more exact in what should happen associated with it, rather than making it up to the department manager's discretion.
Jamie, if, to pigtail on what Vern is saying, I get that we don't govern the electeds, but they're still using the same New World and time deal. We're all on the same platform, right?
Everybody uses the same platform, New World, because that is our finance and payroll software. So they have to be using that, yes. NovaTime is also the county's system, which integrates some departments like my own. We don't have hourly staff, so we don't need time cards. And it's a small staff, so it's easy enough just to input the time off when someone takes it into the system. So we don't use NovaTime because we're exempt staff. And we don't really need it at this point.
NovaTime, like a card reader thing or something?
It's a time card system. Employees can go in and request time off and it'll send their manager a note. It's a time card system. So it's when they come in, when they leave, that imports into payroll so that they don't have to manually enter the hours for each day, things like that.
Okay. Linder and then Jubes.
I'm listening to this as I understand what you said. Absences are reported by the department head, not tracked on paper or in a computer otherwise. So you're actually saying to me that a department head could grant somebody an extra day off and we would have no way of knowing that? Is that
Yeah, yes, and it's
okay?
Correct.
When it comes to exempt employees, they certainly can do that. When it comes to hourly employees, they should not be doing that, but we would have no way
Could
to know.
not, but
Leslie?
Yeah, thank you for letting me comment in a committee that's not mine. I have to say,
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Just be quiet.
I'm a little shocked that there's no policy for a policy that actually can be used to guide behaviors. I am assuming that any type of policy would exclude the FMLA accommodations that are made, which is
Correct.
important.
Yes.
Okay. Also, as a former policy person myself, I think it needs to be broad enough. I mean, I understand specificity, but it needs to be broad enough to allow the individual departments to be able to make decisions based on how they actually operate. So broad enough that they know, that people know what they can and can't do, but not so specific that, you know, a department can say, well, wait a minute, you know, I need this person this day or I don't. And the other thing I think that should be thrown into the mix is blackout days. Because I think if you go back and you track and you look at absenteeism and you look at tardiness, you're going to see that there's days that it falls on. And I think it would be remiss, I'm not saying we should include blackout days. We should include blackout days if we're seeing patterns, literally, because, you know, and that can all be tracked very easily through the software system.
Yes, we don't currently have any kind of policy that states if you call in sick, you don't get your holiday pay. If you call in sick adjacent to a holiday, I know that's a fairly common policy in some places. If you take an unscheduled or call in absence adjacent to a holiday, then you lose that holiday pay. We don't have that policy in place now. If that's something that the board would like to see as an option in the draft that circulated, we can certainly include it. That's kind of similar to the blackout day. Where an employee would essentially have to bring a doctor's note if they were to miss one of those days.
Can I follow up really quick? There are departments though, where blackout days are very different than that and are very important.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Some do have them
I would, yeah.
individually.
So I would say maybe look at both those things separate. I also, as someone who has someone in their family who has intermittent illnesses, I would be careful about saying if they got sick the day before the holiday, they couldn't get holiday pay because it could be a legit, like it could not be just being taken advantage of. So I would be careful about that type of a thing. They're all very nuanced. I understand. If you want somebody to bounce policy off of, I would love to be part of that. So
Thank you.
Jamie, what are you looking for in this discussion? What are you looking for from us? Are we giving you what you need to go back and start something? I don't think we've set a whole sort of blackout days. I don't know that we've given you a lot.
Just a general consensus that you agree this is a good idea to go ahead and pursue was really, I don't usually start a policy without some kind of direction, and this came from the department head. So I didn't want to bring a draft to you with this committee not knowing anything about what or why it came about, and to get a little feedback that this was the direction the committee was comfortable with us going, knowing that we'll circulate it out to department heads and make sure
So
it's
let's just
functional.
ask, are y'all, Mr. Roth, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I did. I had a question more. Is there an issue? I mean, that we need to do this?
I've had a couple of department heads who are having absenteeism issues in their departments that felt it would be easier if they had a county board policy to kind of rely on when you address this problem with your employees. So we'll continue to keep the flexibility for the department.
Well,
heads to
and
pivot.
that's what I would recommend is flexible. I don't want us to come down heavy handed. I mean, you know, it's a perfect example. You can destroy morale real quick if you start getting too heavy.
I think by allowing department head discretion.
Right.
To approve the day off, I think you provide that
Okay.
flexibility. So if
Right.
we as human resources do not police absenteeism at all, we don't have the knowledge or
Resources.
understanding of the department to do it,
Or the resources.
or the resources, or even we don't know an employee is absent until 4 weeks later when it ends up on their paycheck. So we don't we don't do anything. This is a tool for the departments to help manage their staff.
Okay, thank you.
Are we comfortable? I'm sorry.
I understand people that I know, coming back where you have to come in to work, not working from home, it's gonna be a problem. And I think
Okay.
with our group, well, especially mine and Mike's, we just always went to work. We were always early because we didn't want to be late. And it was just because we enjoyed doing it, but future people, young people, they don't care. Oh, so what if I'm 20 minutes late? Well, suppose the cop's 20 minutes late, you know? He's not on the street. Just think of the people that have to be on time. School teachers can't come late to school. Firemen. I mean, it's a mindset in ours because we want to be on time.
We respect your generation, sir.
Yeah.
Very much so. Mr. Tarver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just agree with what others are saying. I do feel it's good practice, and I think that giving Jamie that opportunity to put together something that we can look at in the departments will be good for the county. So I approve that.
I think, Mr. Linder?
I would urge that any policy that's written recognizes that department head could look at a pattern. And if somebody is calling in on every Monday or somebody's calling in on every payday, you know, that you're not always sick on Monday. You're not always sick on payday. If there's a pattern, I think that it should be in the policy that patterns of absenteeism or tardiness are recognized and could be used.
Absolutely.
Dr. Silva.
Good morning. My question is regarding collective bargaining. How does collective bargaining fit into all of this?
So our employment policies typically are superseded by collective bargaining, and we include that in the eligibility statement. So all of our policies, when we write them, include the eligibility is employees of the county board and elected officials if they have adopted the policy, and that are superseded by any contracts, collective bargaining agreements. I have some standard language from the state's attorney that we use to make sure we make it clear who's eligible for the policy.
If nobody else, I think you have consensus to please move this forward in some draft format and bring it back. And I believe Ms. Juby has volunteered to maybe be your spitball on that. So
Excellent.
Leslie, if you're okay with that. Dynamite. Okay, before we place reports on file, Penny, you've been here sitting in. Do you have anything where you just bored and needed to sit and? Okay.
Unlock the doors.
I have a motion to place reports on file.
Moves.
Alan seconds,
Alan seconds.
and an all in favor?
Hey.
Voice for anybody opposed? Thank you all. There is no need for executive session. We are up for adjournment. I want to thank
Can we
every,
have an executive session?
we can do whatever you want to, my friend, but I want to thank everybody. You know, this has been we say this often in this committee. We are not a very sexy committee, but boy, the stuff we do really, you know what?
That, don't we?
The stuff that we work on is heavy stuff that makes a difference.
That was before Miss Silva let her hair down.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So,
Dr. Silva, I'm sorry.
you know, I appreciate everybody's input. I do believe that we make a difference. And I do believe that our actions are positive, and I thank everybody for their time. With that, we are adjourned. Go up, go ahead. I'm so sorry. I forgot. We need a motion to
I
adjourn.
move we adjourn, sir. My last time.
Second.
Would love to second that if that's okay. Thank you, Mr. Linder.
Mr. Linder, do you have a comment or no?
No, I was just
Okay.
moving my second to Dr. Silva.
Okay, perfect. And an all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?